in the room. I'm Jasmine Bowen, and today we are continuing our immigration series with a very special episode. We go off-site to Ottawa, Canada, where we get the very special chance to speak with Democratic leader of Burma and Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi in her first international address in over 20 years. We also speak with special guests Olivia Chow, Jason Kennedy, and Ting Mong Tu, the head of the Canadian Friends of Burma, in this very special episode, the 20th anniversary of the CFOB. Check it out.
Dear friends and colleagues, it's a great pleasure to welcome and introduce a Carleton University graduate, Dr. Aung San Suu Kyi, who received an honorary degree from Carleton University, making her a Carleton graduate, and who, like one of our former chancellors, is the holder of a Nobel laureate. It's appropriate that we welcome her to Carleton University, where the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs, the Department of Political Science, the Department of Law and Human Rights, the School of Journalism lead in areas of concern and merit the caliber of speaker that we have today. It's appropriate that Carleton University hosts this event because Carleton University has a global consciousness and outreach. We know that the problems that we have are problems of the world, and the problems of the world are problems we share. Earl Burney, the Canadian poet, said, "No man," and he probably meant woman either, "is an island," and Canada is not an insular country. Carleton University is a high-tech university, always at the cutting edge, focusing on real-world issues. So we're glad that our technology gets to show off and we get to welcome Aung San Suu Kyi today. On a personal note, I visited Burma many years ago, just before you were placed in house arrest. And I was so moved by the situation that I dedicated a book I wrote called Birmani Blues to you. And I was really warmed by the fact that I understood you were learning French to keep your mind busy. And so I sent you several volumes, and I understand that you didn't get them. I sent them later to your husband, who wrote me a lovely letter thanking me and assuring me that you probably would never see them. So my privilege of seeing you today is doubly sweet. It's now my pleasure to welcome our moderator for the day, Evan Solomon, anchor of CBC News Network's Power and Politics, CBC Radio 1's show, The House. He's had a career of many important programs. He has covered world events of great import. He has interviewed international figures. So it is very appropriate that he come today to welcome our guest and to moderate our session. Thank you very much, Doctor, for coming. Thank you, Evan, for moderating the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a great honor to be here. Dr. Suu Kyi, it's a great honor to have you here for the first time doing something like this in Canada with Canadian students and with journalists. It's a great pleasure, and it's long overdue. I do just quickly also want to thank Ting Mong Tu, the Executive Director of the Canadian Friends of Burma, as well, for organizing this, which is extraordinary work they've been doing in spearheading this event. And I want to thank Carleton, of course, for doing this as well. Let's start. Aung San Suu Kyi, or Da Suu Kyi as you're called by many, many people. Again, a great pleasure to be here. Before I start with some questions, can you give us some opening remarks, perhaps, about the current state of the situation in Burma? As people know, by-elections coming, and your current the news about your ability to campaign. Could you give us some opening remarks, perhaps? Thank you.
At the moment, everybody is very interested in what is going on in Burma. Some are a little bit too optimistic about the situation. We are cautiously optimistic. We are at the beginning of a road. Whether we shall be able to get onto it is another matter altogether. We are trying to get onto the road to genuine democratization. And the coming by-elections will give us some indication as to how far we shall be able to travel. At the moment, we have some problems with regard to our election campaign. Everything is not as you might expect it to be in a truly democratic society. But then, of course, we all know that we are not yet a truly democratic society. But on the other hand, compared to what it was like a year ago, 2 years ago, it is very, very different. I am able to travel freely around the country, and even if sometimes we meet with a few obstacles with regard to our election campaign, I'm able to meet the public. We are able to communicate with one another, and that is the most important thing for any political party. We have been able to reconnect with our people, and that is the great difference for us.
Tell us a bit about this nominal civilian government there, backed by the military, different than the military junta government. What kind of controls are they exerting? And if you can, just to give us some details about the importance of this by-election. I understand there's 48 seats, and even if your party won all of the seats, it wouldn't change. The military would still be in control. So can you give us a perspective of how they're controlling the nominal civilian government, and then perhaps the significance of this by-election?
I think we just have to look at the constitution that was adopted in 2008 to find out how much control the army has over the government. In accordance with that constitution, the commander-in-chief can take over all powers of government at any time that he deems fit. He does not have to refer to the National Assembly at all. So in a sense, you can say that ultimate power still rests with the army. So until we have the army solidly behind the process of democratization, we cannot say that we have got to a point where there will be no danger of a U-turn. Many people are beginning to say that the democratization process here is irreversible. This is not the point. It's not so. This is why I said we're cautiously optimistic. We don't know exactly how the army stands with regard to the reforms that have been instituted by the president and some of his reformist ministers. We, the public, are still quite distanced from the army. So there are many, many obstacles that have to be overcome before we can say, yes, we are truly on the path to democracy. Are we under military rule? No, we are not under military rule. We are under civilian rule. But this civilian rule, as instituted by the Constitution, is very much under the dominance of the military.
Can you give us a sense of what perhaps is driving the nominal civilian government, possibly the military, to open up to democratic reform? What are the things that are affecting this government's decision? And your thoughts as I move to questions of what the international community can do. But what do you think the motives are?
I think firstly, the president is genuinely interested in reform. And I think the government has become very much aware of the dissatisfaction of the great majority of our people. There is a lot of poverty in this country. This is a country which is rich in natural resources, but the people are very poor. And the sad state of the economy has really come home to many people in power, including those who were very recently in the army. You mustn't forget that this present civilian government is made up almost entirely of ex-members of the military. But they began to realize that there was a need for change. Whether the army is behind this move, I cannot tell. As I said earlier, we are still quite some distance away from the army. We civilians have very little contact with the military.
Dr. Suu Kyi, tell us about the international community's role here. Let's start with Canada. Canada's policy has been one of condemnation and a kind of moral position on this government, but not necessarily one of constructive engagement, for example, supporting specific programs. What can Canada do, if it should do more, in terms of engagement with the government in Burma?
Let me say that we are very grateful for what Canada has already done. Canada is one country that had overall sanctions against Burma. And to those who ask whether or not sanctions have been effective, I would answer yes, very, very confidently, because this government is always asking for sanctions to be removed. And one of the very first motion that was tabled successfully in this new assembly was one asking for the dismantling of sanctions. So if sanctions have been effective, if sanctions had not been effective, this would not such be an important issue for them. So Canada has helped us greatly with regard to our movement to democracy. And the way in which you can continue to help us is to keep up your awareness of what is happening in Burma. Don't be too optimistic, don't be too pessimistic. Try to see things as they are and try to keep contact with the ordinary people of Burma. That is how you will learn whether or not we are making any progress under this new government.
Are there other, perhaps, moves, policies that the government could adopt outside of the efficacy of sanctions?
Well, I'll answer those questions after the elections, because a lot depends on how the elections go and how free and fair the run up to the elections are and how things go after the elections. Don't forget that in 1990, we had elections which were considered free and fair by the whole world. And after that, nothing happened. That is to say, although my party won over 80% of the seats in the National Assembly, Parliament was never convened, and we just ended up by having to face a lot of oppression. Many of our members, including our elected MPs, were thrown into prison or hounded out of the country. So we must wait until after the elections to find out whether or not there have been real changes. And depending on these changes, there should be suitable changes in policy.
I wonder, on a wider scale, you've become a global symbol of peaceful resistance. Here we are witnessing events in Syria, where the people are rising up, and it's a very bloody resistance. You've seen and talked about, and I know watched closely, the Arab Spring. In some countries, it's functioned differently. How do you reconcile resistance, for example, what's happening in Syria, with what's happening in your country of Burma?
Each country is different, and the circumstances in each country are different. In 1988, we had a national uprising for democracy, and although the people were not violent, we were put down in a very, very violent way by the military government. So each country is different. The people of Burma did not react in the way in which the people of Syria did, which is not to say that I think that we were wrong, or that the Syrians were right, or that we were right and they were wrong. I think each country copes with the situation it has to face in its own way. But I think that a peaceful resistance, a peaceful revolution is best all around, because although it might take us longer to get to our goal, the wounds are not so great. And I believe that when change comes about through violence and through bloodshed, there are deep, deep wounds which take a long time to heal, and these wounds become tremendous obstacles in the way of genuine democratization.
Tell me about the role of the international community. We're watching it around the world, as you say, the different situations. You met with Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
What role do international countries like the United States and China, what role are they playing right now at possibly different ends of the political spectrum in terms of reforms going on inside Burma?
I do not think that China or the United States in particular have any direct influence on the reforms that are going on in Burma. The United States, through sanctions, have As I said earlier, sanctions have been effective. Sanctions have played a part in making the government here understand that there is a need for change. But it is not that any country anywhere is dictating what kind of changes should take place in this country. Basically, it is the will of the people of Burma which is beginning to make itself felt. And we have been able to do this because of the help that we have received from our friends abroad.
I ask you partly because there's a great debate that's going on, and I think your perspective would be instructive, on responsibility to protect. When certain regimes have cracked down on civilian populations, and the world debates what to do, whether there's sanctions, whether there's a situation like in Libya where the military ought to come in. What's your view on how we understand the world's responsibility to protect when citizens are losing their rights or are perhaps in harm's way?
Well, there are such things as basic human rights. And I think if people really want to know about it, they do know about it. Those who pretend not to know about human rights just don't want to know. And this goes back to what I said earlier. Awareness is so important. You have to be aware of what is going on in a country if you want to help it, if you want to know when we should try to help. I do think that everybody all over the world has a responsibility to try to promote human rights anywhere on this globe.
My name is Richard Weeks. I'm a co-founder of Canadian Friends of Burma. I've just returned from a 4-week visit to Burma, and I was struck by the sense of hope and new opportunity that one feels there, and also encouraged by the number of new ceasefire agreements that have been signed, particularly with the Karen. I also had an opportunity to spend some days in Kachin State, where I observed the distressing consequences of a breakdown in a ceasefire agreement that was in place for 17 years until June last year. And I think one of the things one observes is that the real underlying issues were not dealt with beyond the ceasefire. So I wanted to ask you what your hopes, plans, vision is for addressing this whole underlying issue of the ethnic minorities, perhaps in a way that could give some hope as that meeting with your father in 1947 when the ethnic minorities agreed on what terms they would enter the Union. And maybe just a final thing is, you know, how can Canada as a federal country help in any way to remove the sense of fear there is of other systems which could be viewed as a threat to unity?
Well, you're quite right about saying that that ceasefires do not necessarily lead to a peaceful settlement. The ceasefires are only the very first step. And although they have achieved ceasefires in some parts of the country, as you pointed out, hostilities are still going on in the Kachin State. If we want to bring peace to this country, we'll have to do it through negotiation and political settlement based on the Panglong spirit. This is what all the ethnic nationalities want. And we have to stop being frightened of the term federal. This has been misunderstood and misinterpreted deliberately through military government propaganda for many decades. There are people in Burma who think that federal means right to secession. Of course, we know that this is not so, but a lot of people do not know in Burma because of this propaganda. So we have to respect the aspirations of the ethnic nationalities and try to build up a genuine union based on the Panglong Agreement. And if we think of federal, we should not think in terms of secession, which is not what our ethnic nationalities want. They simply want autonomy and self-determination as laid down by a constitution that will be acceptable to all our ethnic nationalities. And this is what we'll have to work towards.
Hello, my name is Mahmoud Naki. I'm a master's student at the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs. There have been rumors that you may possibly get a cabinet seat depending on the outcomes of the by-elections. Is this something that the NLD would be prepared to accept if it is offered?
Well, since the offer has not been made, I think it would be premature and rather presumptuous to make an answer to that. But I can tell you one thing, that under the President Constitution, if you become a member of the government, you have to vacate your seat in the National Assembly. And I'm not working so hard to get into Parliament simply to vacate my seat.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm a recent graduate of University of Toronto. You're my hero. My mom's side is from Burma, and there's a lot of people here who are just ordinary people. And what advice, I guess, or what do you think we can do to help your situation there, just as ordinary people going about our day-to-day life?
Well, to help ordinary people in day-to-day life, I think you'll have to try ways and means of connecting up with NGOs and other institutions which are working in Burma. I would very much like help with, particularly in the areas of education and health. Now, there are many things that you could do. For example, I would very much like to send our students from Burma to your university on scholarships. We would like to expand our educational and scholarship programs. And we would like to try to help in the realm of health. There are many things that ordinary people can do simply by I'm trying to find the right word. Well, if you could send us medicines, for example, by just donating some money to the right institutions. But the first thing you must do is to get in touch with organizations already working in Burma to find out what they are doing and whether you would be interested in promoting their activities.
Because you have family connection there, can you just give us when you first heard about Aung San Suu Kyi, any of the, just from your past, how you grew up with her role in your life? Just very quickly.
I didn't really know too much about it. My grandparents speak Burmese. They came here 40, 50 years ago. There was a Burmese language school being offered here when I was a student in high school. So I attended, and from there, a lot of recent immigrants trying to learn English. I was helping out and connection to the Canadian Friends of Burma from there. And ever since then, I've been trying to do what I can. I host a talk show, and we'll put you on.
Hello. My name is Jiyoung, and I came to Korea last year from South Korea. And I had many Burmese political refugee friends working for the democracy in Burma and Korea at the same time in Korea. And after I got to know about today's talk, yesterday I was talking to my Burmese political activists who are working in Korea now for more than 20 years after that 1988 democratic movement. And they were, as you said, they were also very much optimistic and at the same time very much pessimistic about that incoming this election. But at the same time, since they've been away from Burma for more than 20 years as a political activist, they really wanted to, I was feeling that they really wanted to go back to Burma. So my question would be, well, how do you see the role of political refugee or political activists who are not inside Burma now, but in outside, and about this incoming election? How do you see their role, and also at the same time the activists who are working with them?
Well, with regard to the coming by-elections, there isn't that much time left. So if the activists abroad would like to be involved, which they can be through the internet and other ways, just by observing the situation and by seeing whether the process towards the elections is free and fair. But if you're talking about the long term after the elections, I think they'll have to wait to find out for themselves whether the situation is such that they could return to Burma and work as they would wish to here. I don't think political activists want to be political activists forever. I think they just want to work for democracy until democracy is achieved. And once democracy has been achieved, there are many who I'm sure will want to come back to our country to contribute in different ways.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you for joining us today, Ms. Suu Kyi. My name is Sid Rashid. I'm a member of, actually an intern with the Nobel Women's Initiative, for whom you're an honorary laureate and for whom we strongly support. We strongly support your struggle. I'm wondering if you can touch on a couple things. Maybe one, if you can give your thoughts, maybe on the new president, carefully, of course, whether it seems as though he may be open to more liberal changes. And two, with the upcoming election, I'm wondering if maybe you can touch on some short-term goals your movement has. Thank you.
Well, with regard to the president, I do believe that he's sincere about wanting reform and that he will try his best. But as I said earlier, a lot depends on what the position of the army is. With regard to the goal of the NLD after the by-elections, first of all, of course, the reason why we have decided to take part in the by-elections is to get into the National Assembly. For the last 20 years or more, we have been engaging in what one might call extra-parliamentary politics, because we have not been, there has not been a parliament in which to operate, and we decided to boycott the 2010 elections because election laws then were not acceptable to us. Since the laws have been changed, we decided to contest elections, and by doing so, we will be expanding our activities into Parliament, and we shall try to bring about essential legislation that will help to establish rule of law, to bring about economic affairs, and many other things. But to begin with, I think we would like to achieve rule of law and peace, and we would like to amend the Constitution.
We wish you the best of luck from our end over here. Thank you.
My name is Tataton, and I'm from Montreal Concordia University. I have two specific questions. One is that every political institutions like a government or political parties, they have advisors. And I understand that many of your party members, they're giving you advices, but do you have any special advisors for your policy, like your political campaigns and everything? And another question is, you will have a maximum 48 seats when you go to elections. So you have a very little chance to reform. I'm not pessimistic, but it needs time, and it also needs the collaboration of the recent government. So what is your reaction and what is your preparation for that? Thank you.
With regard to the first question, the NLD has always had separate committees. For example, a committee on health, a committee on education, a committee on labor, and so on. So we've always had committees like that, and now we have campaign committees, and we have a campaign manager. We work like any political party anywhere. Although we were greatly repressed and oppressed and persecuted all these years, we have tried very hard to operate like any normal political party. Now, with regard to the second question, it is true that even if we win all 48 seats, we'll be a very small minority in the National Assembly. But we do have many allies among the ethnic nationality parties, and we are confident that we will gain more allies as we go along. And in any case, we shall be able to make the voice of the people heard, and we shall make it very clear to our country and to the rest of the world why certain legislative changes are needed. And if the government is truly interested in reform, I think it will be very difficult for them to ignore the voice of the people.
Hello, Dawn. It's a great honor to see you free and able to talk directly. There were times I wondered if this would happen. My question, again, is to do with the Panlong Agreement. In my life, I've had the opportunity to know some of the elders who were involved in the original negotiations with your father and who participated in the constitutional conferences of the early 60s. And I know in their minds, they never felt they were threatening the future of the Union. The military took that differently, and I think if they were here with us, they'd be gratified to hear your words. But I wonder if the military is able to achieve the same understanding you have, if you see any hope that they are rethinking their position on the rights of states, and if they are able to understand the basic concepts given the level of propagandization.
the military is made up of human beings, and I think all human beings are capable of understanding. The only thing is that we'll have to work very hard to make sure that the views of the people and the views of the ethnic nationality peoples are heard by the right people in the military. There is a great barrier between the military and the rest of the country, and these barriers will have to be removed. And the fact that we are going into the National Assembly and that there are representatives of the military there, although of course elected representatives are not exactly democratic. The fact that they are there and we are going to be there together is a step in the right direction. I think we get to talk to each other. We get to learn from one another.
Okay, so we have one more question then for you, very quickly.
Okay, my name is Mbonisi Zikali. I'm a master's in journalism student. I come from Zimbabwe. And in the coming month, it will be the International Women's Day, and it's been a century and 1 year since the first one. And I just wanted you to give us an idea of what women face in Burma, and what your party is doing in forecasting the future for Burmese women.
Now, a lot of people say that Burmese women are very independent and that compared to other countries in the region, the position of Burmese women is very good. But there is still a lot of gender discrimination, although it's not so obvious. I will just give you one very small fact. In the National Assembly now, there are only 15 women. There are over 600 altogether. Only 15 women. And I think that's shocking. Now, we are fielding 13 women in the coming by-elections, which is not really to my satisfaction. 13 out of 48 to me is too few. But when you consider that we are fielding almost as many candidates as there already are within the present National Assembly, we are doing a lot towards making the role of women more effective in government, and we will continue to do so. I think the future of women in this country is bright because Burmese women are very, are very active and very courageous and very outspoken. I think Burmese women in many, many ways are the hope of our country. Sometimes I think they're the only men in the country.
Thank you.
Suu Kyi, I know your time is out. There's more people that would like to ask questions. On my behalf, I'd like to thank you. This opportunity for the first time to address Canadians like this, to talk to students. It's a great stride forward. We've been looking forward to this day. To hear your voice and to hear your perspective is incredibly important. We hope we can do this again soon. And I would like to ask you, I know the President of Carleton would like to thank you personally, but before she does, would you like to make a closing statement to the students and to our country as you talk?
Well, the closing statement will have to be one of thanks. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to get in touch with your students. It matters a great deal to me. I want to get in touch with young people everywhere because I want to be a bridge between our young people and your young people and young people in other parts of the world. The young people of Burma have been cut off from the rest of the world for so long, and we need to repair all the damage that has been done by these years of isolation. So let me apologize for the fact that I have not been able to answer all your questions. It's because of my very tight election campaign schedule that I still have some work to finish before I go off to the Shan State tomorrow. And I want to say to you, please do get in touch with me, although I have not been able to answer some of those who are waiting to ask questions. Please do get in touch with me via email. You'd be surprised the NLD has email now. That's progress. 3 years ago, we didn't even have a telephone because they cut it off. So I hope to hear from you. I hope to keep in touch with you. And I hope that in future, not just Canada, but the whole world will be able to join us in making sure that the future of our young people is much better than what the past has been. Thank you very much.
I think you're getting a standing ovation here. Dr. Kyi, when I was in Burma, I heard a story of many years ago, perhaps in the Middle Ages, an invasion, and in order to save the temple from the invasion, the people brought the bell and the precious statues from the temple and dropped them in the river. So the bell was there, but it was a symbol, and in a sense, your voice is a voice that has never been silenced, despite the fact that you were imprisoned, and we appreciate hearing that crystal clear bell, and we think it's a really important part of our education to hear people like you and to be able to appreciate your leadership. I thank all the students for their wonderful questions. I thank the staff for organizing this. I thank the Friends of Burma. And I thank especially Evan, our wonderful host. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, President. And Dr. Suu Kyi, I'd like to invite up Tin Maung Tu, who is the Executive Director of the Canadian Friends of Burma, who's done extraordinary work, just to say a word. Of course, I know he wants to, and he very much deserves to. Come on.
မင်္ဂလာပါတဆုအခုလိုမျိုးမှားလဲတဲ့ကြားလဲရပါဘောเนาะဒီအချိန်ယူပြီးတော့အခုလိုမျိုးလုပ်ပြတဲ့ကျွန်တော်အနေနဲ့အများကြီးကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ် Canadian Friends of Burma အနေနဲ့ရောနောက်တစ်ချက်ကဒီခန်းထဲမှာကျွန်တော်တို့မိုင်ပေါင်းထောင်နေရှိပြီးတော့နေရာနေပြီးတော့ရောက်လာကြတဲ့မြန်မာဒီမိုကရေစီလှုပ်ရှားသူတွေ88ကျောင်းသားဟောင်းတွေနောက်တိုင်းရင်းသားကိုယ်စားလှယ်တွေတော်တော်များများဒီမှာရှိနေကြပါတယ်တော်စုပြောတဲ့အချက်တွေကကျွန်တော်တို့ကအများကြီးအကျိုးရှိပါတယ် So what I was telling was just thanking to her for taking that time out of her busy schedule. And I also would like to thank Curtin University to jointly hosting this live conversation with Aung San Suu Kyi. And Curtin University is quite supported on Burma issue since early 1990s. The pre-Burma campaign movement, especially the passive vehicle campaign actually started from this campus. I just want to let you know. Thank you very much.
Could I just say something to the Burmese who are there?
Of course.
ဘမပြေးရောက်လာတဲ့အဲ့ဒီအားလုံးကိုကျမအနေနဲ့နှုတ်ခွန်းဆက်ပါတယ်။မပြေးမှာတနေ့ကြာလို့ရှိရင်ကျမတို့တကယ်စစ်မှန်တဲ့ဒီမိုကရေစီပြည်ထောင်စုကြီးမှာကျမတို့အားလုံးအထူးဖြင့်ဒီမှာရောက်နေတဲ့တိုင်းရင်းသူတိုင်းရင်းသားများအားလုံးတူတူဆုံနိုင်ကြပါစေလို့ကျမအနေနဲ့ဆုတောင်းလိုက်ပါတယ်။အများဆုံးဆုံနိုင်ကြပါစေ။အားလုံးဒီနိုင်ငံမှာလုံလုံခြုံခြုံလွတ်လွတ်လပ်လပ်ပျော်ပျော်ရွှင်ရွှင်နဲ့နေနိုင်ကြပါစေလို့ကျမအနေနဲ့ဆုတောင်းလိုက်ပါတယ်။ကျေးဇူးတင်ပါတယ်။
We will, I thank you. I know you're very busy. You've been waiting a long time to campaign. We don't want to be the ones to hold you back. Thank you very much. We hope to hear your voice in Canada again. With great respect, with great thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was a very unique moment. I want to thank all of you for your compassion, your passion, and your curiosity about these kind of events. Please, as Aung San Suu Kyi said, continue not just to be involved in the Burmese situation, but in our democracy here. It's very important. Thank you so much.
Hi, welcome to Remic TV. I'm standing here after a great interview with Aung San Suu Kyi. We're standing here with Nguyen Lang. Now, you left Burma how many years ago?
50 years ago.
50 years ago, you left Burma. And when you left, I think that there was a military regime there.
Yes, military regime.
So what is different now that Aung San Suu Kyi was saying so much has changed, so much has, she's been freed, first of all, and so much has changed. So what do you think about seeing this event?
Well, changes is very nominal at the moment, as Aung San Suu Kyi has said. There's a long way to go now, but still a little better than before.
Do you think that she'll win this election and they'll allow her?
There's no question about it. She will win it, but to become a complete democracy will take a long, long time, as she has suggested, because although member of parliament, about 600 people are in civilian clothes, they are all ex-military people, and military is still behind controlling everything. So it is coming along, but it'll be a long time before it become a complete democracy.
I know that, okay, so she'll win the election for sure, but do you think they'll let her into parliament?
Well, she will get into it. Only about 40 seats out of 600. It's not a very big one though. So how much she can put a pressure as a member of parliament, I don't really know.
Now, she did win an election before, and they actually didn't let her in. So why do you think they are going to let her in this time?
What things? Military people that comes to, they're getting a little wiser, I suppose. Looking at what's happening in Syria, Middle East, time will come. Sudden uprising will be again. So they think about time to change, but they are changing piecemeal, not necessarily entire changes is taking place yet. It's coming very, very slow.
All right, well, thank you very much. So this was Noon Ling on Remic TV.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back to Remic TV. We are here with CBC's Evan Sullivan, who hosted the event. So that was awesome. Congratulations.
Well, it was an honor to speak with Aung San Suu Kyi. What an incredible woman, and what an extraordinary moment in this long road towards some kind of democracy that we can finally get Aung San Suu Kyi on Skype talking to Canadian students for the first time. Extraordinary.
Now, you were so excited you even fell off the stage.
Yes, you don't want to upstage, and it's impossible to upstage here, but I did actually take an embarrassing tumble off stage when the head of the Friends of Burma was speaking, and I tried to back away to get out of the shot modestly, and I did fall off stage, but nonetheless, the event was about Aung San Suu Kyi. And
well, we'd love to see that kind of excitement. Now, how did you get involved? I mean, did you know anything about Burma before doing this event?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a journalist for 20 years. I lived in China. I covered events in that whole region for a long time, so I've obviously followed this. Actually, one of my children is born right in the Vietnamese border. Wow. So, I've been all through. I never got into Burma, but I've been all through Vietnam, Thailand, all those areas. So I know the area and I know the story quite well. And I've been following it for a long time, and as everyone has. And so for me to be asked and to want to talk to her, to have an interview with her, and to get her perspective, again, not just from the general picture, but I have to remind people that the situation is changing daily. Remember, she's just won her court case. She's just been allowed to go freely campaign in a matter of days. So we are really watching the events unfold very, very quickly, and they're changing very rapidly at this point towards more openness and more freedom for Aung San Suu Kyi. So the opportunity wasn't just to talk to someone who's got a great story to tell, but the story is actually unfolding right now. Yes. And that's even more interesting.
Now, she has won an election before, but she wasn't allowed to take her seat. Do you think it will be different this time?
I think Aung San Suu Kyi said she's cautiously optimistic. We don't know how profound the reforms are with the nominal civilian government. It's still backed by the military. Very difficult to read the situation. I would suggest from the people that I speak with that it's a very fragile situation. Aung San Suu Kyi also was very cautious to say, look, should the international community change its policies vis-a-vis sanctions? She said, let's wait until after the election. The election will be a litmus test in terms of how profoundly the civilian government actually accepts any reforms. Are they actually acting on the reforms? And if so, let's make decisions then. And I think that's probably a wise route to follow.
Now, why do you think after so many years they finally let her free to speak? I mean, are they frightened the military regime, or what has changed?
Great question, and I asked Aung San Suu Kyi, what do you think is motivating this change? Obviously the sanctions. She was very adamant. Do sanctions work? She said yes. Not sort of, not sometimes, not nominally. She said yes. So sanctions work. So are sanctions hurting the government? Yes. Is this government clearly trying then to re-engage? They let Hillary Clinton in. Clearly there's some pressure from the Chinese and the international community. That's making a difference. So again, in these situations, and we've seen it before in South Africa and other countries, international pressure works. So there's lots of options on the table: constructive engagement, sanctions, military action. We debate all these all the time, whether it's in Syria, in Libya, in Afghanistan, in Burma. In the case of Burma, as Aung San Suu Kyi said, every country is different. Sanctions and international pressure seem to be working. It's taken a long time. Her patience is miraculous and extraordinary, but clearly it's working. And if we can see in April the results of these elections, I think we'll have a very good litmus test on what direction this is going.
Well, thank you very much for being a part of this and for helping to fight for the cause, and best of luck. Don't fall off any more stages.
Oh, I won't. Well, thank you very much. I fell for politics. That's what I do. Thanks so much.
All right, so we've been talking to CBC's Evan Sullivan, and you are watching Remic TV. We'll be right back. All right, I am here with Tin, the head of the Canadian Friends of Burma, who put this whole event together. So this was amazing. Congratulations.
Well, we are very pleased to make that thing happen, and I'm very, very happy.
Now, how did you get Daw Suu Kyi to speak? I mean, this is very hard to get in contact with her, and especially since she's recently been freed. So how did this all come about?
Well, we worked for many months to have this kind of opportunity. And we have communication, especially if Canadian Friends of Burma has some kind of connection, inside the country. So through many people, through a great deal of work, and we make it. But how we make it, I cannot tell you. This is some kind of like confidential things, right? Yeah. But of course, we would love to do this kind of things, as much as possible, depending on Aung San Suu Kyi's availability. But she's, as you know, very, very busy. She can provide now just like 30 minutes.
Yes.
The many questions was not able to ask here. So, yeah.
Now, you're the head of the CFOB. What can people do to help either immigrants, recent immigrants, refugees, or people who want to come over? What can people do in accordance with your organization?
Well, people can volunteer.
Yeah.
People can do some kind of awareness, educational events in different communities across the country. And specifically, well, of course, there are more than 4,000 Burmese newcomers from Thai-Burma border, mostly Karen, and they resettled across the country. So they need help. So through some resettlement agencies in Ottawa or Toronto or in Hamilton or London, Ontario or Vancouver, anywhere. So people can also help Korean people, because Korean people come from very, a very difficult situation. They have a long way of, hardship. Most of them live in the jungle for most of their life. Some people were born, like young people, 20-something, they were born. They live in the refugee camp for their whole life. So when they arrive here, they face lots of difficulties, and so of course they will need some help. So that is another way, for the resettlement. People can help out as much as they can.
All right, and contact. I think we talked right to your member of parliament as well.
Yes. Another politically, you can keep in touch with your constituency, like MPs that represents your riding, and talk to them, and then encourage them to be more proactive on Burma, to make questions, to table motions, related to Burma. So that is something they can do, and then specifically. People can ask, MPs to join into Parliamentary Friendship Group, which is Parliamentary Friends of Burma.
And how can we contact the CFOB?
Well, we have a website. It's called www.cfob.org. This is our website. So people can look at, there are some update information related to Burma, related to Canada. So that is the way to connect with us.
All right, well, thank you so much. Congratulations on a great event, and good luck with the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
We've been talking to Tin, the head of the CFOB, who put this whole event together. Catch you in a moment. All right, welcome back to Remic TV. We are here with a very special guest, so tell us your name.
My name is Candace Morley.
And you are from Burma?
Yes, I'm from Burma, but not really inside Burma. I'm from Burma and Thai border, which is a current refugee camp, Ompiam.
So you were born in the refugee camp?
No, I wasn't born in a refugee camp. I was born in Thai village, and then after that, the refugee camp became. So went to in the side of the refugee camp.
And your parents were refugees?
My parents, they are originally from Burma. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what do you think about Lady being able to speak here today?
Oh, I was so excited, and this is the first time for me hearing from her like face to face. So I really want to talk to her, but you know, we have a little bit time problem, so that's okay.
But it's great progress being made.
Yeah, it's really good.
And what do you plan to do from Canada in order to assist the situation in Burma?
With the situation in Burma, since I'm here, I attend Carleton University, the first year of communication. So with my major, I am trying to help my people. I am going to try to help my people for my major about media and stuff.
So you plan to go back?
Yeah, I'm planning to go back because after I heard the situation a little bit changed, so I'm really excited to going back.
All right, well, best of luck with that, and definitely keep us informed.
Okay.
All right, you've been watching Remic TV with Candace, a recent immigrant to Canada who plans to go back with her Canadian degree to help her people.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. All right, you are watching Remic TV. We are here with another Burmese immigrant. So what's your name?
Tuntun U.
And when did you leave Burma?
After the 1988 uprising, after the military coup of the state, and we were forced to leave, Burma indirectly because of in terms of the dictatorship systems, they really don't like the pro-democracy people who against the one-party systems. So that's why I left Burma after the military coup of 1988.
Now, did you leave officially, or did you seek refugee status in Canada?
No. I used to be a refugee when I was in Thailand, under the United Nations as a person of concern, as a refugee. And then, fortunately, I was sponsored by the government of Canada as an immigrant. So.
And what do you do here in Ottawa now?
No, I'm from Toronto.
Oh, I'm from Toronto too. Yes. Where we shoot in Toronto. Okay, what do you do in Toronto?
I was working, and also I'm trying to make all my contributions about democracy and human rights in Burma, involved in the organizations of BSDU as a Burmese Students Democratic Organization, and also as a joint coordinator of the Burma Forum Canada, and collaboration with the Canadian Friends of Burma to make a lobby and doing a lot of Burmese stuff to trying to approach the government of Canada to implement about the Burmese issues.
So what do you think about this great advancement that Suu Kyi now can speak around the world?
Which is very amazing. This is the first time I met her again after 23 years after I left. So I feel very great that the Canadian also very interested in the Burmese the situation of Burma, and also she's very fabulous about the way of her running for the election and how she can contribute for the future Burma as well. And thank you so much for the Canadian contributions about Burma.
No problem. Yeah. Now, do you think you'll return to Burma?
Okay, I'm going to wait and see what I will be able to do about Burma, because of the first thing, we need to have a transparency of the government systems. This is the must, right? Because of, to be honest with you, I don't really believe on the army for now. But after April of the by-election, I will be able to decide what I'm going to do. But for now, I'm still thinking what to do.
Do you think you'll be safe because you left as a refugee? Even if she wins the by-election, do you think it will be a safe place to return?
It depends on how she will be able to handle in the House of Commons, and we have to make more organization with the exiled students, not only from Canada, but also from all over the world, like Europe, North America, Australia, such as things. And we are going to make a decision at the same times. This is how we going.
All right, well, thank you very much, and best of luck on your trip back to Toronto. Drive safely. We will be right back on Remic TV. All right, welcome back to Remic TV. We are now in the National Arts Centre where the Canadian Friends of Burma are hosting their final event of the evening. They're hosting a reception, and we are joined by this lovely lady. What's your name?
My name is Tateton.
And when did you come from Burma?
2005.
And why did you leave?
Because I'm married to a Quebecois, Canadian citizen, so I came here.
And how did you meet a Canadian citizen?
He came to work in our country, and he works for the World Food Program, United Nations Development Program.
So you came and you got involved with the Canadian Friends of Burma, and you were at the chat this morning with Da Suu Kyi. What did you think of that?
It was great to see her, and I'm very impressed that Canadian Friends of Burma could organize such thing. And this is the first time, apparently, that we had a Canadian had a conversation with the AUNG SAN SUU KYI.
Now, do you think that you might go back to Burma?
Probably yes.
For sure. And you don't think you'd be in any danger, married to a Canadian? You kind of escaped the situation.
It is still pretty much criticized by the Burmese citizens. Marrying a foreigner is a huge risk for us.
So going back, wouldn't you be in danger if you brought him there?
There won't be a danger, but there is a stigma. Yeah.
And what are you doing here in Canada?
I am studying political science in a University of Concordia.
All right, well, best of luck with all of that, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching Remic TV. I'm Jasmine Bowen, and we will be right back.
We are now going to move on to a few speeches from honored guests. We have with us in the room Minister Kenny. Thank you very much for being here. Could we ask you to come to the mic?
Thank you very much. Bonsoir. It's a pleasure to be here with so many champions of human dignity and freedom, and parliamentary colleagues. I see Bruce Stanton, Senator Danino, Peter Stauffer, Olivia Chow, Władysław Lizon, and former Minister David Kilgore, who I don't think there's ever been a good cause that he has not been associated with. So, not surprised to see you here. David, I'm delighted to bring greetings on this happy occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Canadian Friends of Burma on behalf of the Government of Canada and Prime Minister Harper. One of the reasons why the cause for Burma has been successful is that it has, here in our Canadian politics, transcended partisan divisions as people from all walks of life and partisan backgrounds and have joined together to fight for dignity, freedom, democracy, and self-determination of the Burmese, of the peoples of Burma. I visited Thailand this summer and met with many of the Burmese refugees whose lives have been made a living hell by the junta in their country of origin, and was moved to tears meeting some of the young children who have never known the land of their parents and who live in terrible dislocation in Thailand. But Canada is proud to have opened its doors over the past 4 years to some 4,000 Burmese Karen refugees who have now started new lives in this country. Just last week I met with 60 of them in Langley, British Columbia. They are sprinkled all across Canada in communities small and large. They have significant integration challenges, but it's interesting. I asked the group of Burmese Karen refugees I met just last week, if things stabilize back home, would any of them like to go back? And they all enthusiastically shook their heads and said, no, they love Canada, and this is their new home. So we're so proud of them and their commitment to this, their new country. I want to say that we've heard all of the recognition of many of those responsible for starting CFOB and for making it a success over many years. And first of all, let me say, it's so impressive that many, if we'll say, Pure Laine Canadians have helped to bring this organization together, because the Burmese community in Canada is still very small. It was a lot smaller 20 years ago. And it's made up of people who have come to this country typically with no natural advantages, no great wealth, a lot of spiritual wealth, a lot of cultural wealth, but not a lot of material wealth. And this is not a community that could have in and of itself created, I think, the kind of strong and clear voice that CFOB has. It's been a marvelous Canadian partnership of newcomers, so many of whom arrived as refugees, and Canadians who had a heart for the situation of the Burmese people. And as a result of that strong voice, things have changed. Policy changed. As a member of the former member of the parliamentary Burma group, I can tell you how things changed. The fact that Canada came in with some of the world's toughest sanctions on the junta was a direct result of the relentless pressure from the CFOB. Let there be no doubt about that. The fact, that's right. The fact that Aung San Suu Kyi was awarded one of only 5 people ever to have been awarded honorary Canadian citizenship was in part thanks to the strong work that CFOB has done. The fact that Canada responded with $40 million of emergency assistance following the 2008 typhoon, and that we renewed the $17 million commitment to support the refugees in the Thai-Burma border. All of these things are in part a result of the strong advocacy work done by CFOB. And all of that, here and around the world, leading to the isolation of the regime and the economic pressure, is exactly what has led to the reforms and the steps towards democracy that we are seeing today. So, I'm sorry, I've spoken too long, but it's not often you actually get, I know people like David, you've probably tilted at the odd windmill. This is one where we've actually managed to bring down the windmill. We all hope that these reforms are real, profound, irreversible, and enduring. We pray that that is the case. But the fact that things are going in the right direction now for the people of Burma is thanks in large part to people in this room. Donc, merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Minister Kenny. I would like to let you know that this morning when Aung San Suu Kyi was speaking, one of the first things she wanted to say was to thank us, to thank Canada and the government of Canada for the sanctions. She said they have worked and they are working. So she very particularly wanted to thank for that. If I could invite Olivia Chow, please.
Congratulations to all the award winners. It's very honored to be here with all these, all the democracy fighters. I have much to learn from all of you. On behalf of the New Democratic Party of Canada, Peter, Stauffer, and others, it's wonderful to be here for the 20th anniversary of Canadian Friends of Burma. It must be incredible this morning to hear directly from Aung San Suu Kyi. It's just, I had a committee meeting, so I couldn't come. It must be a sheer joy to learn in November 2010, after 15 years of house arrest, her freedom, and it must have been a sheer joy when we hear of the waves. After the first wave of political prisoners coming out, I thought, is this really true? And then there are more coming out. I thought, wow, it is happening when soldiers put on civilian clothes. Something happened to their psyches. So there's hope yet. In many ways, they were jailed because of their quest for freedom, for democracy, for human rights, and for justice. And when they imagine Aung San Suu Kyi being in jail for 15 years, she did not back down. And the monks that were on the street, they did not back down even when blood flowed. And the freedom fighters, when they were in jail, when they were beaten, when they were tortured, they did not back down. So these waves of possible cautious optimism, I think is that word, from this morning, it's made possible for those thousands and thousands of people on the street, both in Burma and in Canada, all across Canada. It's made possible by your work. It's made possible by the Saffron Revolution. It's made possible by those that risked their lives, that documented all the atrocities. I've seen some of the videotapes that came out. It gave us the witness. They were the witness that told us what was happening in there. And they were risking their lives, and many did lose their lives. And it is, you're right, Minister Kenny, should call you just Jason, it's made possible by the sanctions around the world. It's made possible by all of you speaking out. So let us continue, let us enjoy this cautious optimism, but let us remain vigilant. There cannot be a U-turn. It is possible to have a U-turn. It is definitely possible. We've seen it before. We will, I'm sure, continue to sanction until the April election. Let's see what happens. Let's consider that. Let us not be fooled just because of these service things. We will make sure that people that are freedom fighters in Canada get their status so they could bring their families in Canada so they can continue fighting for freedom and democracy in Burma. You know who I'm talking about, Leroy. Let us continue working together for peace, for freedom, for human rights, for democracy in Burma, because when we come together, we will not fail. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Okay, welcome to Remic TV. We just heard lovely speeches, and we are here with Olivia Chow. Thank you for joining us.
It's an honor to be here. 20 years of advocacy work from Canadians.
Now, you are part of the NDP, and my condolences to the loss of your husband. Big supporter of him and his work. So how did you get involved in this?
I got involved before the Saffron Revolution. And it was just stunning that monks that are praying for peace, when they came out on the street asking for democracy and freedom, that they could be driven down. And I saw the power of the people, and I saw the regime cracking down. And I was so inspired by Aung San Suu Kyi's insistence on democracy and freedom and justice for her country. And after all the 15 years, after 15 years, sorry.
It's okay.
It's okay. After 15 years, in November, she was freed. So that was so inspirational. So all this add together.
It certainly is inspiring, and the monks coming out and being beaten down like that, I think, was the most heartbreaking moment I have ever seen. Certainly. Now, what work are you doing kind of within Canada?
Well, I went to a lot of demonstrations on the streets. I spoke up in the House of Commons. I even got in front of the Chinese consulate in Toronto, because remember the UN Security Council wanted to intervene, and they were not and UN Security Council wanted to intervene, and they were vetoed by China. So there's no reason that. But as it turned out.
People are so energetic and excited tonight. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so you went in front of the Security Council?
Yeah, and because the Security Council wanted to take action, but it was vetoed by the Chinese government. So anyway, I was just providing some kind of support for Friends of Burma.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your support for Burma within your party, and thank you so much for coming out tonight and making this a speech. It means so much to us in the community.
Thank you. Keep up the hard work and be cautiously optimistic, be hopeful, but let's keep up the pressure.
Thank you. So we are speaking with Olivia Chow on Remic TV, and we will be right back. Thanks. All right, we are back on Remic TV. I'm Jasmine Bowen and Jason Kenney. Now, you're the Minister of Immigration, right?
Yes, citizenship, immigration, and multiculturalism.
Well, that's a big job, a lot of job titles.
It's a long title. The longer the title, the less important the job.
So you pretend to multitask all day.
Exactly.
Well, we multitask here at Remic TV too. Now, tell me, how did you become involved in this specific cause? What do you know about it?
I was first elected to Parliament in 1997, and I'd always had an interest in the Burma issue. I'd been more involved in human rights issues regarding Tibet. But I quickly joined the Parliamentary Friends of Burma back then in 1997, and I've been involved ever since. Then I became a minister of the government in Prime Minister Harper's government back in 2008. And I've continued my active involvement. I've been friends with CFOB and many of its key people for many years.
And were you at Suu Kyi's speech this morning?
Unfortunately, I was no, I couldn't be there. We had a caucus meeting this morning, but I heard it was very moving and very inspirational.
Now, what do you think, especially since you joined years and years ago, there's been a lot of changes in Burma since then. Do you think she'll actually be able to take her seat this time?
Well, we certainly all hope so. I think everyone's attitude is we don't want to be overly optimistic, but you know what? We shouldn't be too pessimistic either. This has been decades waiting for democratization in Burma. It appears to be going in the right direction. There appears to be momentum that may be irreversible. And Canada certainly hopes that the pressure that we have exerted through sanctions and supporting Burmese civil society organizations, that all of that has added up to the dramatic changes we're seeing today. So we hope the elections go well, and we're delighted that Aung San Suu Kyi seems to have freedom of movement and action.
Well, thank you so much for coming out to support us tonight, and continue to do all that great work in Parliament for us.
We'll certainly continue all together as Canadians to support the cause of democracy in Burma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been watching Remic TV. I'm Jasmine Bowen, Jason Kelly, the Minister of Immigration. Thank you.